Hey, it's Danielle Marullo here. I'm just about done setting my table. I have some of my closest friends joining me for dinner tonight. I'm going to make a steak dinner, but some of my friends are a little bit health conscious. So what if I told you you could substitute one simple ingredient in your recipe to make it healthier, and that is salt. I have this amazing product here called LoSalt. It's 66% less sodium than regular salt, which is vital for heart health. And I'm going to use it in my steak rub recipe, which usually requires quite a bit of salt, and I'll show you how to make it. Let's go in the kitchen. Now this is one of my original recipes, and I call it Bar-BREW-Q Steak because there's actually coffee grinds right in the steak rub. So today I'm going to show you how to make it. It's really simple. It has about 7 different spices in it, some sweet, some savory, so it all comes together beautifully with the steak. So I have some ground mustard, some ground ginger. It's about a half a teaspoon of each spice, so it's really easy to remember. Cayenne for some heat. Paprika, you can use smoked paprika, Spanish paprika, whichever you like. Coriander seeds that I took whole seeds and I grind them up in a food processor. It gives it a more pungent aroma and a beautiful flavor. Some oregano. I use dried oregano. You can use fresh, but when you're doing a rub, you want something that's a little drier so it really penetrates in the meat when you rub it into it. Onion powder. Some dark brown sugar. I use about 2 tablespoons. You're going to want a good amount of sweetness, and the molasses and the sugar just caramelizes on the meat. It's really delicious. And then our coffee grinds. So I use a good Colombian roast. It's pretty robust, and I use a 1/4 cup. And then finally, the star of this recipe, the LoSalt. So I use 1 teaspoon of LoSalt. You can use a fork to mix this together. You can use your hands. We know I love to use my hands in my recipe. We're gonna blend the sugar with all the spices and just break up the little lumps. Today I'm using London broil for my recipe, but you can also use flank steak. You can even use a loin of pork or chicken if you'd like. What's great about this recipe is we actually reserve a 1/4 cup of this rub to make a barbecue sauce out of it. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Just take a 1/4 cup. Now we're just gonna season this meat with the rub, and you can do this overnight, which I suggest you do because overnight the flavors will really penetrate into the meat. Or you can do it a couple hours before, or if you don't have the time, it's fine. The flavor will definitely be there. It'll only just get better with time. Now rub these spices into your meat. Make sure you evenly coat the meat and get both sides and the edges. We want every bit of steak to have all those amazing flavors. And we'll set this aside in the fridge for as long as we would like. I'm gonna set it aside for a couple hours and then come back to it. In the meantime, while you're letting your steak rest and marinate in the fridge, you can make the barbecue sauce, which I'll show you next. This barbecue sauce is super simple. The first step is chopping our shallots. We're gonna cut it just like we do an onion, and we're gonna do some straight cuts and then some cuts across, about 2 or 3. And then cut down and you have a fine dice. Really simple. Now put the minced shallot right into a small saucepan. We're gonna saute that up in a couple minutes. But first I wanna show you how to properly cut some garlic and using the LoSalt as our little helper. So first we're gonna take our chef's knife or any large knife that you have. You put it flat onto the garlic. Smash it with your hand, and that'll peel the garlic with ease. And then we take some salt, sprinkle it on top, smash it again. And now the salt is actually going to help release the juices in the garlic, making it more flavorful, and also just makes it easier to mince because little granules just break down the membranes of the garlic. And now we're gonna mince it really finely. The finer you mince, the more surface area each little bit of garlic has, releasing more flavor into your sauce, which is really important. We want a flavorful sauce to keep up with that rub on our steak. I have my garlic and my shallots in my pot here. I'm just gonna add some olive oil and we're gonna sweat them. Now we're not going to saute and caramelize them. We want no color at all. We just wanna release the flavors and soften them up. So that's called sweating. So we're gonna put on low heat. And just slow and low, baby. We're just gonna get these nice and translucent. So now we're gonna add one of America's favorite condiments, and that is ketchup. It's a very common ingredient in barbecue sauces. So just mix that with the shallots and the garlic, and keep it on low heat so it doesn't burn. Next, some sriracha for a little bit of a kick. You can leave it out if you like, if you don't like any spicy foods. We're gonna add some Worcestershire sauce, which is gonna give it that smokiness that barbecue sauce has. Mix that together. Some dark brown sugar again, 2 more tablespoons for some sweetness. And that'll cut the spiciness as well, because I'm not big on really spicy food. This is pretty mild. A touch of lime juice, just about half the juice of a lime. And finally, that amazing spice rub, a 1/4 cup that we reserved. This has that great low salt in it. What's great about low salt is that it tastes just like regular salt, but it's actually natural. There's no preservatives in it, no chemicals. It's actually a natural product, which is really wonderful. So now I'm gonna put in some honey, about 1 tablespoon, a natural sweetener. Oh, sugar, oh, honey, honey. No, we don't need to sing today. We're just gonna add some water, and this will help all those spices release their flavors, and as this simmers, it'll thicken back up, and you'll have your sauce. It's as simple as that. Now this has been simmering for about 20 to 25 minutes. It's thickened up nicely, and we're ready to baste our steak, get it on the grill, and then we'll thinly slice it, pour the rest of that sauce on top, and we'll be ready to eat. I took my steak out of the fridge, and I'm letting it rest a little bit here. It's better to cook meat when it's not ice cold. You want it to sit at room temperature for a couple minutes. And I have my sauce. Now, to make sure that it's thick enough, I'm gonna show you a quick trick. I use a rubber spatula. I dip it in the sauce, and then we're gonna put our finger right down the middle. Now when the lines don't cross, that means that your sauce is thick enough. This final step is really important because all those coffee grinds and the coriander seeds are a little bit tough. So we're gonna strain the sauce. Just put it through a fine chinois or strainer, whatever you have on hand. All right, now using your rubber spatula, just push the sauce gently through the strainer. And you'll see all the beautiful silky sauce just fall right to the bowl. What you're left with is this silky barbecue sauce. Let's baste our meat. So we're just gonna take a little bit of the sauce and just do a thin coating around the entire steak. Make sure you do both sides evenly. And then I'm gonna throw it right on a grill. Sear it, get it nice and crusty on the outside and juicy in the middle, and you can cook it to whatever temperature you like. I like medium rare, so it's still nice and juicy. As you're basting it, just remember you wanna save a little bit, just so you can finish the steak with the sauce after it's cooked. I took my steak off the grill. I let it rest here for about 10 minutes. If you don't let your meat rest, all your juices are gonna just flow right out when you cut it, and you'll leave your meat dry. So that's not what you wanna do. Make sure you let it rest. So just take my meat, put it on my cutting board, and I'm gonna thinly slice it against the grain. If you cut with the grain, you're gonna have tough pieces of meat. And London broil is pretty lean, so you wanna make sure you cut against the grain. Okay. Everything is sliced, one more slice. All right, look at that beautiful steak. It's perfectly cooked. Pink in the center, nice dark crust around the edges. Now we're gonna plate it onto a nice white platter, and then I'm gonna pour the sauce right on the top. And you can serve this with potatoes or salad. You can have it on a sandwich, which is perfect. I love to have the leftovers tomorrow on a nice crusty ciabatta roll or whatever kind of bread you like. You can even put a little aioli on it, delicious. You can put as much or as little sauce on your steak as you'd like, but I like to just do a nice drizzle for presentation purposes. You can sprinkle some nice chopped parsley on top for a nice contrast as well. I know my guests aren't here yet, but I'm really anxious. I just want to give this a try, so I'm gonna taste it. We have to make sure it's good before we feed it to people, right? It's sweet, spicy, savory, got a nice earthy flavor from the coffee. And the best part is, you have no idea I didn't use regular salt. It's so flavorful. That low salt, I mean, it's a healthier alternative. I feel like it's a no-brainer. I'm gonna use it in all my recipes. If you've got room for more steak and other recipes, head to my website at gotroomformore.com.